Alright, let's start by blowing your mind. You know that giant fiery ball in the sky? Yeah, the one that's been burning for billions of years, keeping us warm and toasty. Well, plot twist, it's not actually on fire. Nope, the sun isn't some massive bonfire floating in space. Instead, it's a nuclear powerhouse. Deep inside, hydrogen atoms are getting squished together under extreme pressure, fusing into helium in a process known as nuclear fusion. This releases insane amounts of energy, which then radiates outward, eventually making its way to Earth. Number 12. Meteors aren't really on fire either. If you've ever wished upon a shooting star, I hate to break it to you, that wasn't a star, and it definitely wasn't burning. Meteors, or as we like to call them, space rocks on a death mission, aren't engulfed in flames as they streak through our atmosphere. What you're actually seeing is intense friction. When a meteor enters Earth's atmosphere, it slams into air molecules at ridiculously high speeds, compressing and heating the air in front of it. This causes a bright glow, making it look like it's on fire. So technically, meteors aren't burning, they're just being bullied by Earth's atmosphere until they disintegrate. Harsh. Number 11, 2023, the year Earth became an oven. If you thought summer was getting hotter every year, you were absolutely right. 2023 set a record as the hottest year ever. And before you blame it on the sun, which, as we established, is not on fire, let's talk about climate change. Heat waves, wildfires, rising sea levels, it's all getting worse. But here's the real kicker. This global heat wave might ruin some of your favorite things. Raw oysters. Say goodbye to them. Warming waters are helping bacteria thrive, making oysters a food safety nightmare. Beer? Yep, it's about to taste worse and get more expensive because hops production is declining thanks to scorching summers. But there's hope. The Inflation Reduction Act is throwing nearly $370 billion at climate and clean energy projects. So while the planet is literally heating up, humans do have the power to fix it. Maybe. Number 10. Nuking an asteroid. Not as cool as the movies make it look. If an asteroid were headed straight for Earth, what's the first thing Hollywood would do? That's right, nuke it. But here's the bad news. That's a terrible idea. See, while nuking a massive asteroid might break it into smaller pieces, that's not exactly a win. Those smaller pieces could still rain down on Earth like an apocalyptic hailstorm. Instead of one big disaster, we get thousands of mini ones. Great. So no, we can't just Bruce Willis our way out of an asteroid impact. Scientists have better ideas, like using spacecraft to nudge an asteroid off course long before it becomes a problem. A little less dramatic than Hollywood, but way more effective. Number 9. Crying in space? Not as dramatic as you think. Alright, picture this. You're an astronaut floating in space, and you stub your toe on the International Space Station, because even in zero gravity, pain finds a way. You start crying, but guess what? Your tears don't fall. Thanks to microgravity, your tears just pool up on your face in little blobs. You could literally have a tiny floating puddle of sadness just chilling in front of your eyes. It's like your emotions got a sci-fi upgrade. Number 8. Wait, there's gravity in space? You've probably heard the term zero gravity a million times, and you've probably seen astronauts floating around looking weightless. But guess what? That whole no gravity in space thing, yeah, it's a lie. Gravity exists everywhere, even in space. The reason astronauts appear weightless is because they're in a constant state of free fall while orbiting Earth. It's like if you jumped off a cliff and somehow never hit the ground. You'd feel weightless, but gravity is still very much pulling on you. So next time you watch an astronaut float around, remember they're not in zero gravity. They're just falling forever. Number 7. Can sound travel in space? If you've ever watched a sci-fi movie where spaceships explode with a loud boom, I have bad news. Space is a giant silence chamber. There's no sound because sound waves need air or some other medium to travel. No air, no sound. But, and this is wild, some areas in space have just enough gas particles to carry sound waves, like the hot gas clouds around black holes. If you could somehow listen in, you might hear the faintest of whispers. So in space, most people won't hear you scream, but maybe a black hole would. Number 6. Do planets make music? Ancient astronomers once believed that planets moving through space created celestial music. Spoiler alert, they don't. But planets do produce radio waves, and when scientists convert those waves into sound, the results are unsettling. Instead of a cosmic symphony, you get eerie, otherworldly noises. Imagine ghostly wails from the void. Definitely not playlist material. Number 5. Space is a vacuum, but not a perfect one. We've all been told space is a vacuum completely empty. But that's almost a lie. Space isn't totally empty. There are still a few stray atoms floating around. In the vast void between galaxies, there might be only one atom per cubic meter. It's basically as close to empty as you can get without actually being empty. Number 4. Astronauts don't explode in space. Movies love showing astronauts instantly exploding when exposed to space. That's not how it works. If an astronaut's suit was breached, they wouldn't pop like a balloon. They'd suffocate, sure, and their body fluids would start to boil. Gross, I know. But they wouldn't explode. It would be a horrible way to go, but Hollywood definitely over-dramatized it. In reality, an astronaut would lose consciousness within 15 seconds due to lack of oxygen. Within a minute or two, they'd be dead not from explosion, but from asphyxiation and decompression. Despite what movies suggest, the human body is surprisingly resilient, even in space. Number 3. You can't move in space by blowing air. Another Hollywood lie. The idea that an astronaut could propel themselves by blowing air in one direction. Hate to break it to you, but no amount of exhaling will get you anywhere. Since there's no air resistance in space, blowing air won't generate enough force to move you. That's why astronauts use tiny thrusters or attach themselves to the space station like responsible adults. The only way to generate motion in space is by applying Newton's third law, action and reaction. So unless you've got a jetpack or a tool to push against, you're stuck. If you ever find yourself floating away in space, unlikely but still, your best bet is to throw something heavy in the opposite direction to generate momentum. Number 2. The dark side of the moon isn't always dark. Pink Floyd fans, brace yourselves. There's no permanently dark side of the moon. The moon is tidally locked to Earth, meaning the same side always faces us. But as it orbits, different parts of the moon get sunlight at different times. So every part of the moon sees the sun, just not all at once. The far side of the moon, often mistaken as the dark side, actually experiences day and night cycles just like Earth. It remains hidden from our view, but spacecraft have captured stunning images revealing its rugged, cratered landscape. Number 1. Earth isn't a perfect sphere. Let's bring this back to home base. You've always been told Earth is a perfect sphere, right? Well, guess what? It's actually an oblate spheroid. That means it's slightly squished at the poles and bulging at the equator. Blame it on Earth's rotation. If the planet were a ball of clay spinning on a pottery wheel, the middle would puff out. And that's exactly what's happening. This bulging effect also affects gravity, making it slightly stronger at the poles than at the equator. So technically, if you stood at the North Pole, you'd weigh just a tiny bit more than if you stood at the equator. And that's a wrap on today's Cosmic Truth Bomb. If your brain is still intact after all these myth-busting revelations, give that like and hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below with the biggest space lie you believe, no judgment. We all thought astronauts could zoom away by sneezing at some point. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and remember, meteors aren't on fire, but your support sure is.